TOD for the Oasis Corridor, the opportunities and potentials for transit-oriented development along the Oasis line.
So one of the first questions we're looking to answer is about the ways enhanced transit can benefit the region. How can transit improve our quality of life and economy? How's transit helped other communities reach their goals? In really fundamental ways, transit helps expand our travel options and offers us a wider range of choices about where we live and work and how we get around. Of course, we'll always try to squeeze additional capacity out of our road network, but we also need to explore other options. As we think about how transit can influence our economy and support more sustainable forms and patterns of development, we've looked to other communities to learn lessons on how it's worked elsewhere. In similar communities, enhanced transit services attracted private investment, increased property values, and generated local tax revenue. Such benefits could be important to us as we think about how we move beyond the downturn and position the region for the future. We've learned a lot from other communities about how transit has sparked investment and attracted new dollars to a region. For example, businesses located near the DART light rail system in Dallas experienced more than a 30% jump in retail sales in just 1 year of transit service. In Phoenix, $5.9 billion in private development and $1.5 billion in public development has been generated along their new light rail line since 2001. Transit service has also been a powerful tool to focus development in the right places and relieve pressure on existing neighborhoods, open spaces, and natural areas. And this is what we're here to talk about how transit can be used as a tool to transform regional patterns of growth and development, strengthen communities, and expand opportunity.
So, what in fact is a TOD? What are the characteristics of transit-oriented development? A primary characteristic of successful transit-oriented developments is that they are compact, with buildings and uses located close to the transit station. We typically speak of a TOD in terms of a quarter-mile radius or a half-mile radius. A quarter-mile radius equates to a 5-minute walk from the station, and a half-mile radius is equal to a 10-minute walk. A quarter-mile radius describes about 120 acres of land. A half-mile radius describes about 500 acres. These are not large areas, but all the variety, intensity, and density of a successful and vibrant transit-oriented neighborhood can and will fit within them. And if you live within that half-mile radius, the odds are very, very good that you will, in fact, use the transit system that helps make the TOD viable. Transit-oriented developments are compact, but they are also diverse. They require a balanced mix of uses, typically including jobs, housing, shops, and restaurants, all the things you need to live, work, and play in a single, coherent setting without necessarily having to use an automobile. TODs must be designed to enhance multiple means of mobility, including not only transit, but equally importantly, biking and walking. Every transit trip starts as a pedestrian trip or a bike trip, and every transit trip ends as a pedestrian trip or a bike trip. To facilitate these activities, TODs require safe, well-designed streets that are optimized for cyclists and pedestrians, as well as vehicles. A great deal of diverse activity takes place on the streets of a TOD. They must be deliberately designed as pleasant, comfortable, safe, and interesting places. In this vein, every element of a TOD needs to be designed for human activity. When you're looking at a building from a car going 60 miles per hour, you miss a lot of detail. When you're walking past a building at 3 or 4 miles per hour, every aspect of the design becomes critical. Because the tempo of a transit-oriented development relates to pedestrians and bicyclists more than to cars, human scale is critical, and the design of buildings and the design of public spaces becomes very, very important in order to reinforce a coherent, attractive community character and identity.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to designing a TOD. TODs are designed to fit different places and can take many different forms, from neighborhood-scale TODs to new mixed-use centers and transit-oriented reinvestment in existing downtowns. When we think about what transit-oriented development can mean in our region, we think about the process that's used to define what a TOD is and how different communities will decide what's best for their future. Each community will decide what sort of TOD is appropriate and provide the tools to deliver projects that fit their community visions and goals. TODs can be thought of as falling into 4 basic types, from the least intense neighborhood TOD to the most intense type found in downtown locations. Neighborhood TODs are designed to serve as neighborhood centers with 2 to 3 story buildings, low to moderate density housing, and a modest mix of uses. Community-scale TODs are designed to serve a broader set of community needs. These are places with a mix of shopping, offices, and moderate density housing in low to mid-rise buildings. Regional scale TODs are places with a higher intensity of uses, mid to high-rise buildings, and concentrations of jobs, shopping, entertainment, and housing. Downtown TODs are the highest intensity form of transit-oriented development. These are places with the highest concentration and intensity of jobs, housing, shopping, and cultural uses. In our region, we're talking about transit-oriented development that strengthens and supports traditional downtowns.
So, are transit and transit-oriented development good for the region? Can TOD help communities be more livable, more prosperous, and more sustainable? The answer to all of these questions is yes, for multiple reasons. One of the most important features of a regional system of transit and transit-oriented development is that it actually enables us to conserve resources, particularly undeveloped open space, and still accommodate significant growth. That vision is built around a regional system of linked higher density mixed-use nodes interspersed with significant preserved open space, including sensitive environmental lands, agricultural lands, and habitat. The only way we can achieve this vision, a vision that derives from years of community consensus building, is through a regional transit system supporting transit-oriented development. Transit-oriented development also serves markets that are currently underrepresented in the area. A number of recent surveys and studies have shown that over the next 20 years, at least a quarter of all households will be looking to live in some form of transit-oriented development. TOD creates these desirable mixed-use environments with a wide variety of housing types that appeal to many key demographics: young singles, young couples, empty nesters, seniors, and even families that are looking for a more urban lifestyle. These are markets that are not effectively addressed in the current auto-dominated patterns of growth and development. Transit-oriented development also helps cut costs. The average family in an auto-oriented pattern of development spends approximately 19% of its household budget on transportation. Households with easy access to regional transit spend less than 10%. Families with good access to transit will have more choices for how to spend their money. The less they have to spend on transportation, the more they have available for housing, for education, for discretionary spending, and for savings. Transit-oriented development also expands options. A regional system of TODs provides places for people who are looking for a more active lifestyle and less dependence on their cars. TODs are energy efficient, use up less land per capita, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and the overall demand for fossil fuel. Studies indicate that people who live in transit-oriented developments drive less, walk more, are more active, weigh less, and are healthier than similar people living in auto-dominated forms of development. Perhaps the most important feature of transit and a regional system of TODs is that they help focus future growth and development. As is notable in the example of Arlington, Virginia, almost half of the county's assessed land value is concentrated on 11% of the land area, most of which is adjacent to the stations that are part of the regional transit system. A regional system of TODs makes it very clear where development will go in the future and what types of development will go in which locations. Such a system creates an organized pattern for development and growth, understandable by investors, developers, employers, future residents, and the community as a whole. So, are transit and transit-oriented development good for the region? Can TOD help communities be more livable, prosperous, and sustainable? The answer to all of these questions is yes. With careful planning, committed leadership, and a little patience, transit and transit-oriented development can help the region thrive into the future. TODs help communities conserve resources, they serve new markets, and they help residents control costs. TODs expand options for current and future residents and businesses, and a regional system of transit and transit-oriented development helps focus future growth to be more efficient and sustainable. In summary, transit and transit-oriented development are essential to the long-term prosperity and success of the region.